Today, we welcome to Global Citizenship Education interview series, Conrad Hughes. Conrad is the Director General of the International School of Geneva, where he teaches the theory of knowledge. He's also a member of the Advisory Board for the University of the People, a Senior Fellow of UNESCO's International Bureau of Education, and a Research Assistant at the University of Geneva's Department of Psychology and Education. Conrad's publication includes Understanding Prejudice and Education, The Challenge for Future Generations, Routledge, Educating for the 21st Century, 7 Global Challenges, Brill, and Education and Elitism, Challenges and Opportunities, published by Routledge. So, Conrad, thank you so much for joining the Global Citizenship Education interview series. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Emiliano. Thank you for organizing this.
All right, so all my guests here would go through a first question, and it's a quite straightforward question. And the question is, what is your perspective on global citizenship and global citizenship education, and how do you believe we should approach educating global citizens in today's globalized world?
Okay, well, there's several questions in there, and it's complex. First of all, what is a global citizen? I've always lent on the work of Akari Malek. Actually published a chapter in one of their books not that long ago. There are three types of global citizen. You've got radical global citizens who are really involved in activism for social justice and planetary renewal. You've got critical global citizens who look at information and deal with information with some discernment and skepticism, and they are committed maybe not to the same level or in the same manner of behaving, but to essentially to sustainable development goals. And then you've got what we could call neoliberal global citizens who are developing competences for a transformed workplace with a surge in technology and a globalized economy. And they may or they may not have the mindset of the critical or the radical global citizen. I think it's important to keep that definition open, because often what you've got in global citizenship education is a kind of gutter of contradictions and everything's thrown in there. But if you've got that taxonomy, it gives you some idea. Then we get into, global thinking internationally but acting locally, which I think is increasingly important, and a curriculum for global citizenship, which to me is really about an education for peace, an education for inclusion, and an education for sustainable development. The global side of it would be some element of the curriculum that is bringing into force the local context, whether it's the politics, the history, the geography.
Yeah, so you see a mix of sort of the dynamism within the term itself, but you tend to emphasize the global aspect of it, where you have a mix of local and global issues, and then that would altogether inform a curriculum for global citizenship. I believe this connects to my second question to you. You have contributed to the UNESCO IB guiding principles for learning in the 21st century. And so in this document, and I read the document with pleasure, it was very, very interesting. You're exploring topics such as the importance of skills versus knowledge. However, what I frequently emphasize in my publications is that it seems to me that nowadays there is a lack of discussion around values. And so I was curious to know from you your perspectives on this notion, the notion of values, that I believe is not so much discussed in higher education. Perhaps you can also bring in your perspective as the Director General of the International School of Geneva.
Right. Okay, this is interesting. There's that moment in every teacher's career where they say it themselves, or they should say, it's not about what I'm teaching, it's about what the students are learning. We need to be more interested in educational output than curriculum input. Curriculum input is important, it's vital, but we really need to make sure that we're doing what we can to transform the lives of our learners in positive ways. Now, that transformation needs to come from within. And when you look at values, when you look at ethics, they are deep-seated. They tend to be personal. They're often described in a moral, cultural framework. And I think one of the problems that we have in a lot of modern educational settings, certainly in international schools, it's virtue signaling. So, we spend a lot of time saying what our values are, but that doesn't really mean anything if students on the ground don't feel protected, if they're being bullied, if administrators are abusing their power. So I think it's through caring for one another, it's through compassion, it's through learning how to discuss tough issues together that the true values that drive our learners will evolve and start to develop. I mean, a lot of values come from home as well. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't promulgate our values. We stand by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We're very much wedded to UNESCO's publications, for example, the 2021 Reimagining Our Futures Together, the recent Transforming Education Summit. As the Director General here, I bring this to my people, to my staff, because those who aren't familiar with those documents, I want us all to look to that higher level of essentially planetary imperatives, things that we need to all work together on for the world to be a better place. But the trick is, we're looking at sustainable development. How do you get students to love nature, to protect nature, to endorse and own regenerative systems, not just to know about them as intellectual constructs, but to actually take them on and to incarnate them? Now that's a big question, and it's part of the whole philosophical construct of values education. So I think we look at role modeling, we look at actions, we look at discussion to bring out values. And also, you can't tell people what to think. I don't believe in that. I think you need to help them how to think, but give them options. I believe in intellectual freedom. Intellectual freedom.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That's very interesting. So what if you were asked to provide 2 or 3 values that you believe are core for our youth in the context of super complex society with pandemics, potential international conflicts, regional conflicts, discussion around human rights, discussion about peace, all of that. At some point, I feel there is a need to start a discussion that brings in some of the core values that connects to these international global issues. What do you think on this? What kind of 2 or 3 values would you discuss in this context?
Okay, good question. And you can break values down to core values, so there are relatively few of them, and it's quite universal. One that comes to mind, and I talk about this, and I certainly believe in it, is compassion. It's beyond sympathy, it's beyond empathy, it's compassion. Not just recognizing suffering in someone else, and it's not just feeling that suffering with them. It's actually wanting to help. Maybe it's more important to want to help someone than just to feel and recognize what they're going through. Because if we don't help each other out as human beings, at a macro and at a micro level, we're not going to get very far. And I'm just thinking about Gen Z. They're facing a very hostile work environment. They're probably going to be earning less than their parents. We've got 8 billion people on the planet. COVID has brought about quite a lot of destabilization with the Uberization of work and a kind of neoliberal approach to work. Human beings are exploited more and more, even though paradoxically, there's in some ways there's greater access and opportunity. But we have to keep society human, and we have to look after each other. We have to be kind. So compassion is one of them. That's for sure.
So compassion is one of the core values that you would suggest.
Compassion. Absolutely. Now another one. It's not really a value. It's almost a kind of attitude, and maybe even a competence. But maybe it's not so important where you pitch it. It's confidence. Confidence in yourself. Oh yeah.
Right.
Because the thing is, you spend about 15,000 hours in school. You got to come out good at something. And there are a number of different literacies that you could excel in: health literacy, sports literacy, cultural literacy, numeracy, literacy, scientific literacy, financial literacy. It doesn't just have to be academics, but educators should see the gifts in young people and want to nourish those gifts and to grow them into talents. So that by the time you leave school, you're really good at least one thing. That gives you confidence. And when you've got confidence, you can do great things, and you can get out there. You believe in yourself. That's a kind of engine. It's a motor that's needed for entrepreneurship, and for just human flourishing. Obviously, that's not a value in that it doesn't have any kind of moral overtone. I'd like the two to go together, so that you're energized and motivated to do something that's positive and good for other people.
Mm-hmm. Also, because in some cases, confidence can become arrogance too. So there is always a subtle line between the two, isn't it?
Well, I like that. You've got these different stages of learning, and so you've got sort of unconscious incompetence. You've got conscious incompetence. You've got conscious competence, and then unconscious competence when you're really flying. I think the difference between a confident person and an arrogant person is that a confident person tends to be conscious of their competence, whereas an arrogant person is actually unconsciously incompetent. So they think they're great, but they're not. Now, it's a bit more complex because, of course, you could be very good at something, and on top of that, you're unpleasant with other people. And that, how do you educate someone not to be like that? I mean, if there was a simple answer, I think we'd all be doing it. But this is a discussion that we've been having philosophically since, at least, Greek and Roman literature. I think of, the Stoics and this huge sort of moral focus on the works of people like Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, without going into different philosophical traditions. There's one more I'd add, though. There's one more. It's joy, or maybe even better, humor. Let me explain. I don't mean
joy or human or humanity. Human.
Humor, as in a sense of humor. Knowing how to laugh, knowing how to take some pleasure in life, and not to take things too seriously. Because we're talking about young people entering a daunting world, and I think as adults we need to model for them some happiness and some joy and some passion. It's great to be alive. There are all sorts of opportunities. I think in global citizenship education, if you're not careful, you can crowd out young people's ambition with all sorts of negative messages about climate skepticism, the world's going to end in 2050, about all of the problems that we've got, social problems, the fact that we've got a backsliding in democratic governance, we've got a rise of aggressive identity in politics. They need to know about that critically, but they have to feel that there's that joy and there's that beauty in life. So that's a kind of value, it's an approach.
And also, I believe it's quite connected to what you're saying. What I realized is this really support in taking actions, or at least to have confidence that they can, our young people can take actions to transform such issues, right? Because sometimes they appear so overwhelming that it's difficult, particularly for a younger learner, to foresee a solution to it. So perhaps from us as educators, really some input on how potentially they can address these issues and take actions to address them, right? Because you can discuss it theoretically, but then if there is no input in terms of how to take actions to change such issues, then it's a sort of a 50% learning journey. At least this is my opinion.
I think you're right. You have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, think for yourself, stand up for what's right, maybe face a counter current. You might go through a global citizenship education at school. Would say that it's in a way quite theoretical, although I do believe in community service, outdoors learning, really project-based learning, getting learning as active as possible. Nonetheless, when you hit, let's say, university and the workplace, that's when you're kind of on your own and you have to carry those values out. And so that's where the confidence is important.
Yeah.
That's also where basic literacies are important. I mean, Vygotsky's work and Piaget's work on the importance of literacy being an extension of logical and critical thinking, but also a
Absolutely.
medium to communicate with other people. It's vital, right? It
Mm.
all comes together.
So we're heading toward the end of this conversation, but there are a couple of more important questions. One is I want to contextualize this discussion that we are having on core values, building up of confidence. You discuss compassion, joy, being human. I want to contextualize this in terms of your experience as the Director General of the International School of Geneva, particularly I'd like to learn from you some fundamental insights regarding the promotion of global citizenship education within the International School of Geneva. And then we head toward the end of the conversation with another important question. But let's focus on this first.
Okay, so there are a number of, the International School of Geneva is a pretty incredible place. We were the world's first international school. We invented the model United Nations system in the 1950s, the International Baccalaureate, a diploma program in the 1960s. And these are really very powerful expressions of global citizenship in themselves.
Absolutely.
Particularly the model United Nations, you think about that. Children are working in teams, they're looking at global issues, they're drafting resolutions, they're learning the language of international diplomacy. It's fantastic. Now, we're looking forward. And one of the things that we've been working on, it's an alternative transcript, which is called the Learner Passport, so that when students leave high school, they carry with them not just a grade transcript, which is the traditional high stakes, narrow, uniquely academic description of the profile of the graduate, but they also have what we call an Ecolant Learner Passport. And the Learner Passport, it describes academics and non-academics. It describes everything that a student's done in the last 4 years of their schooling in 7 global competences that come from UNESCO's International Bureau of Education, who are our official partners. And as you pointed out in my biography, I work with them as a research fellow.
What are these 7?
Okay, that's a big question. What are they? Lifelong learning, self-agency, interacting with the world, which is environmental custodianship, interacting with others, interacting with diverse tools and resources, multiliterateness, and transdisciplinarity. So I could go into all of those, but essentially we're looking for evidence of growth in those areas. So that's an important project for us. And we're in our 2nd year of it. The goal is for more schools to try using alternative transcripts so that we can influence the world of work and universities with this more holistic vision of student learning.
So this discussion on the 7 global competencies is available on the school website, is available through a UNESCO's IBE document. Where is available, just as a piece of information for our audience, and perhaps we can put it down in the YouTube video interview published with you, so people can access.
We can do that. If you go on Ecolant's website, you'll find the Ecolant Learner Passport quite quickly.
Great.
But we are working right now on a global citizenship education course for students. So the way it's working is we're spending this year to design the course. Next year, we will roll the course out for students. So we're working with UNESCO's International Bureau of Education, the United Nations Office of Human Rights. And what we're doing is really designing through modules that happen in different areas of learning subjects. Swiss history and politics, because we're in Switzerland. Social psychology with an emphasis on understanding prejudice. Sustainability through essentially the humanities and sciences. Education for peace, things like philosophy for children, peace and conflict studies. This is an exciting project. And what we started with was training of staff. So we're going through a deep dive on inclusion, okay? Inclusion, diversity, equity, anti-discrimination. We're coming to the end of that deep dive. Doesn't mean we stop getting trained in it, but we've sort of gone through one cycle of that. Then looping behind that is training on sustainable development. And as we start the training on education for peace, we'll be beginning to roll the course out so that this whole system alignment, all faculty are trained in these 3 areas, and many of them are teaching this course. And students are coming out of their educational experience having done this global citizenship education course. What's important to me in this is that it is integrative and not substitutive or additive. I don't believe in these models where you need to get rid of all the subjects that are there. We need to change everything. Because the more we talk like that, the less we do. So you've got to start somewhere. I think you need to start by integrating in what
Yeah.
students are learning these important themes. I mean, you're going to stop learning history? I wouldn't do that. You're going to stop learning science or second or third languages, arts? I disagree. I think these are fantastic areas, epistemic areas, but we need to bleed through them these global citizenship
Absolutely.
education themes. So that's
Infusing
the
it.
project.
Very interesting,
Yeah.
very interesting. I look forward to participating in some of your courses at some point. I'd be very interested in experiencing this great vision that you're sharing. All right, so we are at the end of this really, really interesting conversation with Conrad, and I want to ask you a core question, perhaps a challenging one. And the question is, how would you define, based on your experiences, interesting publications, visions that you just outlined for the International School of Geneva, how would you define global citizenship education in just 3 keywords, and why these 3 keywords?
Peace, inclusion, sustainability. Why these 3 words? Peace. The planet is still at war. You know, as we speak, there's a war in Ukraine. There is war in Mali. There's terrible violence in Mexico and Syria and Israel and Palestine, Afghanistan, Pakistan, just to mention a few places. There are 12,000 warheads in the world. You know, for Noam Chomsky, we've never been closer to total annihilation. It's still a problem. So peace is vital. We have to learn to live together peacefully.
Right.
Inclusion, because we need to transform education into a place where every bird can fly, where every star can shine, where we love our human diversity, we encourage it, and we create psychological safety for people to grow in their identities. I think without a diverse world, we'll have no world. The world flourishes through diversity, eco-diversity, and social diversity. You know, you look at migratory patterns, globalization, we have to learn to live together and to respect our differences and our commonality. And then the last one, well, obviously, you know, it's basically the first one. It's sustainable development, and specifically out of those 17 sustainable development goals, I'd say to start with ecological goals. You know, we're running out of the planet. Some say it's too late. I don't think it's too late, but it's urgent. And so, you know, teaching regenerative systems, being more eco-friendly as an institution, modeling all of these sustainable behaviors that we need for so that we don't colonize the future and we leave it open.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Very interesting conversation. Thank you very much, Conrad. Peace, inclusion, sustainability with a particular focus on ecological goals. Interesting conversation on global citizenship education and beyond. Thank you so much for participating in this video interview series on global citizenship.
Thank you. Obrigado, Emiliano.
Thank you.